Hello everyone, Bertina Amy here, and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I thought I would do a Dollar Tree DIY star ribbon wrapped wreath. Try saying that 5 times fast. Okay, so I grabbed one of these star wreath forms from Dollar Tree, which I was happy to see this year. And I now see that they have red, white, and blue burlap ribbon. So hopefully you'll find it in your store. Some stores will obviously vary in terms of what they have in stock. And I noticed that only one of my stores had all 3 colors. So, hopefully you could find it. However, your alternative is to, of course, buy it off Temu. I already had these on hand. They seem to be the same width, about, maybe slightly different. But I want to go ahead and use these up first before I worry about using those. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a little ASMR by removing the wrapping. Okay, so oh, and I almost forgot. I gotta remove this too. Oops. Okay, so let's do a size comparison here. Be careful if you see needles in your package. But yeah, that I think is going to be perfect. However, if you decide to go with, if you find it at Dollar Tree, feel free to go with these. These will be the exact same size when using them. So I'm going to go ahead and use these since they work and I like the colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and join these two together. And then, yeah, in fact, I'll do that really quick on camera. I don't mind glue showing through, but of course it gets to my fingers. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and unravel these. I'll be right back. Okay, so here it is unraveled. I'm going to just fold this in half like this. And I'm going to consider this area to be roughly the center. And I'm going to flip it over this way. I don't think it matters where I start. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and select this section to be my starting point. So I'm just going to, let's see, I'm going to wrap this. And the package of the white from Temu that I got, I think that, I don't know if I thought maybe I would need more of this, but this one roll is already 10 yards, and I certainly don't need all 10 yards. And whatever I don't use, I'll just put right back on the spool. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this all the way through and speed through this process. Okay, so now that I got it all through, this part could always be covered up, so I'm not going to worry about it showing right now. Okay, and then we're just trying to wrap it around this bar here, and then we'll start doing our official wrapping. Okay, so I've got this wrapped around, and I'm just gonna, because I want the folded edge to always be facing me, I just have to manipulate it so that it is. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so this is gonna be going like that. And then pull this through this way. Okay, so now that I have both pulled through, I'm going to just do right over left. And again, we're not going to worry about how that looks right now because we could always cover that up later. Okay, right over left. I think this is going to look awesome. And I can't wait till I show you what I plan to do with the center part too, because I think it's going to look awesome. Okay, So we're going to do right over left, and I was too excited to start this project right away that I didn't pre-fold the the center or middle area of the entire ribbons. I also didn't see the need to do that for the white side when I didn't know how far I would need to go, and I hope I have enough red. I definitely know I have plenty of white. And if I run out, I might have to use the Dollar Tree stuff because I apparently did not buy more than this one roll, it seems. And also, for some reason, the lighting is making it look like I have orange. I promise you it's red. Okay, so we're going to just wrap around like that and do the same thing with the white. And then I'm just folding as I go so that it's folded down the center, but it's not going to be perfect, and that's fine, but just pulling this through. Okay, and then we're just going to repeat that. So we're going to do right over left again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wrap this here. This is my first time doing the star version. But I'm going to wrap this around this bar here. And then wrap this like normal here. Almost like we're going to kind of end it here, but we're not. I hope that makes sense. But let's pull this through. Okay, so this is going here. And you know what? If you want it to look perfect, what we could do is cut it and just glue it upon itself. So I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to just cut right here and add a bit of glue. And here I am just tucking in the ribbon. Like that. Hopefully it looks good on the other side. Okay. And that's not going to be perfect, but you know that's okay. And let's see. Then I'm going to do... So this is not going to go over perfectly. I'm just going to let it bend through here. Okay. Pull this off the desk. Okay, and then I'm actually okay with that there. And then here's my red ribbon again. Let's see, maybe I could do... I'm going to cut the white as well. I'm just going to try to be consistent here. And then just add hot glue. And then I'm just going to have it glue over itself. Okay, so for the red, I'm just going to... Okay, so I want to keep the same appearance, and in order to do that, it needs to look like it's going through this way and then through, so going through that way and then going under like this. I think that's what I'm gonna do, is just do it like that, and then I'm gonna glue it in place because I want to continue the appearance so that it looks like it matches, and hopefully well. And don't worry about this bar, that will be covered up soon. So I'm just going to hot glue these into place. And of course, you can keep it one continuous. I'm doing it this way because I want to make sure that the pattern continues properly. And I'm going to cut this here. And then I'm going to hot glue there. The back is not going to look as pretty as it usually does, but that's only because of the fact that it comes to a point. I hope that makes sense. So now I'm going to bring the white in, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it around here. Okay, so here's my white, and then I'm just going to, because I want the bar covered, I'm going to stick this through here and turn it around. Okay, and I'm going to hot glue, and I already need some more hot glue, but I'm going to hot glue there and then turn it around. And then now I can focus on this going through like this. Okay, and then pull this through. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to try to make this as taut as I possibly can. Meanwhile, I'm going to take this red and I want to continue that same pattern. So I want it to look like we're going from here. So let's see, what if I did, like, I'm going to glue. Okay, let's get this glue stick in here. And then I want to glue it as far as there. Okay, so I'm going to hold that. You don't have to do it this way. I'm doing it this way because I want it to look like as though it's continuous. You can continue it, but it might not turn out looking quite right. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So then now I'm focusing on these areas. Okay, so pulling this through here. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna do right over the left. And we gotta fold the white one some more. A little bit of bar is probably gonna inevitably show up anyway. You know, just as a heads up. I'm gonna guess that this red ribbon is maybe three yards. Maybe, oh, you know what? Maybe it's 5. All right, so right over left. All right, so then right over left, and we're using that bar. All right. And then I'm going to repeat the rest of this off camera. So nearing the end here, and I'm realizing that I was able to make the other points of the star more white, if that makes sense. Whereas when I started out, I ended with a partial red and then moved on to white. And I wanted it to all be cohesive and, you know, all the same all around. So I decided to undo the first section, which is doable because I did cut it off at the end, if that makes sense. And even though the start of the following one is glued on, I'm able to actually fix that. And I noticed that if I didn't do that, it would end up being a little awkward where the pattern would have like 2 of the same colors next to each other. And I just didn't want that. So I decided to go ahead and undo the very first section that I did. So keep this in mind when you try to make your own. You may have to do the same thing if you follow exactly as I did it. Or you could actually start it at the corner or something like that, where you could see the common pattern over and over again. Just make sure if you start it, you're going to start by wrapping it around and then kind of gluing it to itself. I hope that makes sense. And then just kind of repeat the pattern from there. So here we're actually back at the end again, and you can actually still access that diagonal bar at the bottom. So I just go ahead and continue wrapping as per usual until I get to the very tip, and then I cut off the excess and glue it to the back of the wreath. Next, I picked up this star tinsel wrapped decor piece from Dollar Tree, And this isn't optional, but I go ahead and remove all the tinsel. You can choose to keep this on instead and then move on to the next step if you want to, but I removed it because I didn't want to see any of the tinsel peeking through my burlap ribbon that I'm going to use or my burlap fabric. So that's why I'm going ahead and removing it. Alternatively, if you decide to follow this step, just an FYI, the prongs do stick out in order to hold the tinsel into place, so you may want to consider cutting it off if you have the right tools. I don't recommend going ahead and just using your good scissors for it. It could cause it to get ruined a bit. It's totally up to you, like I said, but I decided to remove it completely and I don't remove the prongs. I did that in the past and it was kind of a pain and it can be uncomfortable when you're wrapping things in and around it and with or without the prongs, to be honest. So totally up to you. However, since I went ahead and removed the tinsel, I wanted to make sure that this piece stayed together, as without the tinsel, for whatever reason, it just kept wanting to pop apart. So to combat that, I decided to use 3 different pieces of zip ties. Then once I had them all secure and I was comfortable with it and made sure it didn't pull apart very easily, I went ahead and cut off all the excess. Then I brought in this blue burlap ribbon from Temu. And like I said, depending on your local Dollar Tree store, they may be carrying the navy blue version or some sort of shade of blue. I did find some at the Crafter Square section, but not all Dollar Trees had them, so just keep that in mind if you want to repeat this project. However, if you don't find the blue shade of burlap ribbon, you may find burlap rolled fabric instead in that shade, so hopefully you'll be able to find similar products at your local Dollar Tree. However, I decided to go ahead and apply my typical method of taking the whole ribbon off the spool, folding it in half both ways, and start to just wrap around this star because I wanted it for the center of my star wreath. However, because of those prongs still being there, and even if they were cut, it probably would be worse, it actually kept getting like scratched over my skin, which isn't like the worst thing, but it's uncomfortable, especially in tighter areas. So in hindsight, what I would recommend if you're going to repeat this project is don't even worry about trying to wrap it, because frankly, you're not going to be able to, it's going to be near impossible to get a nicely wrapped, cohesive look to it. So that's why I'm actually putting this at hyper speed. So instead, what I would recommend is just doing a very basic wrap around it just to get it covered up at first. Or like I said, just leave the tinsel on and wrap over that if you don't mind it peeking through some of the burlap if you choose to use burlap in the center. Or you could use a totally different center piece inside of the star instead that's also a star, but you don't even have to worry about wrapping it. There's so many options, just feel free to go with what works best for you and your situation. Because in the end, I go ahead and wrap over this anyway, so you're not even going to see what it looks like. The only sad thing about it is that I really like this shade of blue, but navy blue is not an issue either, so there you go. So here it is, all completely covered up in that blue ribbon from earlier. And like I said, on either side, none of it really looks fully cohesive. I'm not even sure if anyone would think this is pretty, to be honest. So I also thought that since I already did that ribbon wrapping method for the outer edges, I don't need to repeat that for the center anyways. And if you wanted to, you could just remove the tinsel and just cover it up with the burlap ribbon, like I said. So it's totally up to you. I'm going to go ahead and cover this up though with a burlap blue ribbon. Well, it's not really a ribbon, it's more of a roll of fabric, but it looks like burlap ribbon. I can't really explain it, but if you know what it is, let me know in the comments below. In any case, I just use it to kind of use the originally tinsel star piece, and I just go ahead and push the fabric through. And I wanted to make sure I used a section of the piece that didn't have a fold in it because I couldn't seem to get it nice and flat when it was within a fold. So I hope that makes sense. But I go ahead and push it through the wreath, and then I can see how nice it looks. So I just cut off the excess in the back, and then I actually went ahead and didn't glue the excess pieces to the back and attach it completely. However, that's because I might want to change my mind maybe sometime down the road and prefer what the original piece looks like without the overlapping burlap roll of fabric or whatever it is. So it's totally up to you, but if if your goal or intentions are to focus on the burlap ribbon or the burlap fabric or whatever it is you're using, then in that case, I would definitely glue it and attach it like on a more permanent basis. My sincere apologies, as I didn't realize throughout a good chunk of the recording of this video that I did not make sure my camera was angled correctly, so hopefully that's not an issue moving forward, but it should get corrected because I realize it near the very end of this. And anyways, I just wanted to share that all I'm doing here is taking some twine and deciding to use that as my hanger for this wreath. You can choose to use anything else that you have on hand. It doesn't have to be twine. You can use pipe cleaners in, similar colors or something like that. Totally up to you with whatever you have on hand. But I'm basically just tying a knot, making a loop, tying a knot at the ends, and then I'm just stringing it through where I consider this star to be the top portion, and then just pulling it through the loop. I hope that makes sense. So let me know in the comments below how you would go about embellishing this, or would you just leave it as is? Should I add star gems to it with hot glue? Should I stamp on white little stars all over? Or should I put fairy lights behind the navy burlap fabric? And here's the final result. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.